Connor Brookes was shot dead a year after Bailey Atkinson was murdered in Walsall. It is now been revealed in court that this was a revenge attack for the murder of Bailey, after a tit-for-tat dispute between several groups in the local area has resulted in the murder of at least 2 people and several people being jailed today for the shooting of Connor Brookes. I went to the scene of both of these murders, and the story has only now been revealed via CCTV that has been released by the police following the conviction. This is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And this video is sponsored by Maurice Andrews Solicitors. Get in touch today for your legal representation. A year before the brutal murder of Connor Brookes in Walsall, Bailey Atkinson, who was only 21 years old at the time, was murdered on the High Street in January 2023. Several people were convicted of his murder: Sonny Loveridge, Ronan McCulloch, and 18-year-olds Patrick Brookes and Benjamin Wilkes. One of the several that was convicted was the brother of the murder victim, Connor Brookes. It was revealed in court that they believed this was the main motive for the shooting of Connor a year later. And this week, 3 people have been convicted and face life in prison for that shooting in front of innocent witnesses. On the day that I went to the shooting of Connor Brookes in 2024, there was another crime scene not far away where the whole street had been shut down and police had cordoned it off. We now learned via the court case that there was a shooting just before Connor had been killed, where a group had started to drive around the Walsall area looking for people that they believed were responsible for the murder of their friend Bailey Atkinson. The group were driving a Ford Focus and they opened fire on another car, and the car chased them through the streets, and this was moments before they then came back and opened fire in front of children and young people, killing Connor in his van and injuring his friend. Connor and his friend were sat in a parked van in Wells Lane in Walsall just before 5 PM on the 8th of July 2024. A stolen black Ford Focus pulled up alongside them, and 6 seconds later, a gunman in the back of the car fired a shotgun once. Connor, who was in the driver's seat, was hit and died, and while his friend was in the passenger seat, he was hit in the left shoulder but survived. The Focus then sped off at nearly 50 miles an hour and was driven to Wiley Road, where the murder weapon was dumped within minutes of the shooting. A major investigation was launched by homicide officers, and they trawled through hundreds of hours of CCTV to piece together the day's events. They would later go on to identify that Patrick was Connor's brother, and he was convicted of the murder of Bailey Atkinson, who was stabbed to death in Walsall the year earlier. The investigation showed the car was driven by Jake Sambrook, who was 23 years old, and inside the vehicle was a Byron Selick, who's 20 years old, and Julian Faulkner, who's 19 years old. The trio were friends of Bailey Atkinson, and some of them had images in their phone and also information about his murder. The police also used the fact that 15 minutes before the murder of Connor Brookes, shots were fired from the Focus towards another car on Stevenson Avenue, and the police believed this was another attempt to shoot at somebody who was associated to the murder of Bailey. The shotgun was recovered in a bin in Wiley Lane, Staffordshire, shortly after the murder of Connor. And the Ford Focus was found abandoned 4 days later, and gunshot residue was still present inside the car, and also DNA from Sambrook and another man called Samuel Danks Petty. He was 20 years old, and he was found guilty of perverting the course of justice after helping the killers to drive home after the murder. The other 3 men were convicted of the murder of Connor and the attempted murder of his friend and possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life. They will be sentenced at Wolverhampton Crown Court on the 30th of May. Okay, hands along your back. Hands along your back. Connor's family said in a statement that Connor was an incredibly kind and caring person and someone who was always there for us. His loss at such a young age is devastating for everybody that loved him, and this has been a heartbreaking journey for the family, and it's a loss to everybody that is involved. The violence needs to come to an end before more lives are ruined. The investigating officer, Detective Inspector Michelle Caudle, said Connor's murder had a devastating impact on anybody that knew him and also loved him, especially his family. His friends survived the attack, but we have no doubt the trauma he experienced that day he will have to live with for the rest of his life. The brutal and cold-hearted actions of the group in broad daylight were intentional, cruel, cowardly and unjustified, and we may never know who fired the gun, but the jury's verdicts show that they were acting with a common purpose that day, and they are all guilty. And as we've now learned, this is the reason as to why I go to the scenes, because sometimes stories take a long time for all of the facts to come out, and this appears that these three people were driving around that area intent on murdering somebody that day. They were not going to leave until somebody was seriously injured or dead, and it so happened to be that Connor was parked up in his car with his friend at that time when they turned up. So please pay respects to Bailey Atkinson and also Connor Brookes in the comments. And please don't forget to share this news on all social medias. And you can follow Scarcity Studios on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter and Facebook. And I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace. Scarcity at the scene in Walsall, the scene of a murder. As you can see there, people, buskers still doing what they do, and people still going about their day-to-day lives. This is the third cordon and flowers are already being placed at the scene.